Priyanka Mehra and Samir Kapoor's wedding night should have been the beginning of a new life, but a shocking discovery turned celebration into tragedy, leading to a brutal crime that stunned families in two countries. Priyanka Mehra stepped off the plane in Toronto with a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. She had spent months preparing for this moment, leaving behind her bustling hometown in India, her friends, and the familiar rhythm of her life. The crisp Canadian air felt different, carrying a chill that made her clutch her coat tighter as she walked through the terminal. Her family had arranged her marriage to Samir Kapoor, a young man living in the city, and although she barely knew him, she had accepted the match with hope and trust. Her suitcase was heavy with carefully chosen dresses, jewelry, and gifts for her new life, each item representing a piece of the world she was leaving behind. As she took a taxi to the apartment where she would begin her married life, she looked out at the streets lined with maple trees and modern townhouses, the city's unfamiliarity stirring both excitement and unease. The apartment building was modest but well kept, with sunlight streaming through the windows and casting long shadows across the floor. Priyanka noticed the small details, the neatly arranged furniture, the fresh flowers on the counter, the warmth of the place that had been prepared for her arrival. Neighbors smiled politely as she passed, exchanging brief greetings that made her feel cautiously welcomed. Despite the serene surroundings, a part of her remained on edge, aware that she was stepping into a life that was both new and uncertain. She wondered what Samir would be like, what their future together might hold, and whether the promises of love, stability, and happiness would truly materialize in this foreign city far from home. Every step felt like a threshold, a delicate balance between hope and anxiety, as she crossed the doorway into the apartment that would become her new life. The wedding day arrived with a sense of celebration and nervous anticipation that filled the air like electricity. Priyanka Mehra, dressed in a vibrant red lehenga embroidered with gold threads, looked radiant as she entered the venue, her hands adorned with intricate henna designs that told stories of tradition and love. Samir Kapoor, standing tall in his sherwani, watched her with a mixture of awe and pride, believing he was beginning a lifelong journey with the woman before him. The ceremony was intimate, attended by family and close friends, and the room echoed with laughter, blessings, and the soft hum of devotional music. Flowers filled every corner, their sweet scent mingling with the aroma of traditional Indian cuisine being served nearby, creating an atmosphere that was both festive and solemn. As rituals progressed, Priyanka followed each custom with care, her expressions a careful balance of joy and composure, while Samir mirrored her gestures, fully invested in the moment. Outside the hall, guests took photographs and shared quiet conversations, unaware of the subtle tension that seemed to linger behind Priyanka's poised exterior. Despite the outward perfection of the day, a sense of unease flickered in small ways, the way Priyanka's eyes occasionally darted to her phone, the moments she seemed lost in thought, as if carrying a secret she could not share. Yet, by the evening, the wedding had concluded successfully, and the couple returned to their apartment, which had been decorated with flowers and soft lighting, designed to welcome them into the beginning of their shared life. The air was filled with optimism and hope, but beneath the surface, hidden truths waited silently, ready to disrupt the carefully constructed image of a perfect wedding night. The night after the wedding, Samir tried to settle into the quiet of their apartment, but a nagging sense of unease kept him restless. Priyanka appeared calm, sitting across from him with her phone in hand, scrolling as if nothing had changed, yet he noticed the way her fingers trembled slightly whenever a new message appeared. At first, he dismissed it as normal nerves after a long day of celebrations, but soon he caught glimpses of messages from unknown contacts, short, cryptic phrases that hinted at secrecy and connections he could not understand. The tone of the messages was casual, almost playful, but something about them made his stomach tighten with suspicion. He watched Priyanka closely, noticing subtle signs of tension, her eyes darting away when he looked at her, her smile faltering for a moment before she quickly regained composure. The unease grew as he realized these were not simple messages from friends or family, they suggested an entirely hidden life, one she had never mentioned. Samir felt a cold knot of doubt form in his chest, an anxiety that seemed to fill the apartment and make the familiar walls feel strangely alien. That night, sleep evaded him as he replayed small details from the day, the fleeting looks, the secretive glances, the way Priyanka's laughter sometimes carried a hint of something he could not place. He began to wonder who she really was, and what she had left behind in India or elsewhere. By the time dawn broke over the city, Samir realized that the perfect image of his new bride was cracking, revealing shadows of deception he had never imagined. The apartment that had seemed warm and inviting now felt like a cage filled with unanswered questions, and he knew that uncovering the truth would change everything. Curiosity turned into determination as Samir began to dig deeper into Priyanka's life, compelled by the unease that had settled over him like a heavy fog. He started with small steps, casually searching her social media profiles and online activity while she was occupied in another room, trying to make sense of the cryptic messages he had seen. What he discovered shocked him: multiple online identities with different names, photos of Priyanka in places she had never mentioned visiting, and interactions with people who had no knowledge of her marriage. Each profile painted a picture of a life completely separate from the one she presented to him, a life built on carefully constructed facades and hidden relationships. Samir felt a mix of disbelief, anger, and confusion as he realized that the woman he had married was not entirely who she claimed to be. He confronted her gently at first, hoping for honesty, but Priyanka's calm denials and measured words only deepened his suspicion. She seemed to anticipate his questions, deflecting them with ease and maintaining a composed exterior that made him doubt his own instincts. The apartment, once a sanctuary for newlyweds, now felt suffocating, each room echoing with secrets and half-truths. Samir replayed the wedding day in his mind, noticing the subtle signs he had ignored, the fleeting hesitations, the distant glances, the moments when her attention seemed divided. It became clear that Priyanka had carefully hidden this alternate life for reasons he could not yet comprehend, and the realization unsettled him to his core. In the quiet of the night, Samir understood that this discovery was only the beginning, that beneath her polite and radiant exterior lay a complex web of deceit that threatened to unravel everything he had believed about their life together. The days following Samir's discovery became tense and fraught with unspoken suspicion. Every interaction with Priyanka was colored by doubt, and even the smallest gestures, her laughter, her glances, the way she moved around the apartment, seemed calculated and suspicious. Samir tried to maintain normalcy, going through the motions of meals, errands, and small talk, but each time he caught a flicker of hesitation or secrecy in her eyes, it made his anxiety deepen. The cryptic messages continued, arriving at odd hours, each one a reminder of the life Priyanka had kept hidden from him. He began watching her more closely, observing patterns he had previously overlooked, trying to understand what she was concealing and why. The apartment, once a haven, felt increasingly like a pressure cooker, filled with the tension of secrets, lies, and suspicion. Priyanka, meanwhile, seemed calm on the surface, maintaining her routine with an almost eerie precision, but Samir sensed the tension beneath her composed exterior. Late at night, he would sit alone, piecing together fragments of evidence, social media posts, strange contacts, and inconsistencies in her stories, trying to reconcile the woman he thought he knew with the reality he had uncovered. Each discovery brought more questions than answers, and the more he tried to connect the dots, the more elusive the truth became. The distance between them grew, silent and suffocating, and a sense of foreboding settled in Samir's chest. He could no longer ignore the feeling that their lives were on a precarious edge, that the careful balance of appearances and secrets was fragile, and that one small misstep could tip everything into chaos. The unease was constant, and with every passing hour, the tension escalated toward an inevitable breaking point. Late one evening, the tension that had been simmering between Samir and Priyanka finally erupted. Words were exchanged, sharp and unrestrained, as Samir demanded answers he had been suppressing for days, and Priyanka responded with a mixture of defiance and desperation. The apartment, which had once been a quiet refuge, now felt like a pressure chamber filled with anger, fear, and confusion. Emotions flared uncontrollably, and small frustrations that had been building over days now exploded into a violent confrontation. Samir, overwhelmed by betrayal and rage, lost control in a moment that would change both their lives forever. His actions were sudden and brutal, striking Priyanka in a fit of anger he could neither justify nor fully comprehend afterward. The violence escalated quickly, leaving her weakened and defenseless, while the apartment bore silent witness to the chaos, objects toppled, decorations disturbed, and the air thick with fear and tension. Priyanka's calm composure shattered, revealing vulnerability and fear that Samir had never seen before, yet it was too late to reverse what had begun. By the time the confrontation ended, she was gravely injured, her life hanging in the balance, and the gravity of what had occurred began to dawn on Samir in horrifying clarity. The hours that followed were a blur of panic, denial, and fleeting attempts to regain control, but nothing could undo the irreversible damage. In a single night, the dreams of a new life, the promises of love, and the hope that had brought them to Toronto were shattered, replaced by fear, regret, and the weight of actions that could never be erased. The apartment, once a symbol of new beginnings, had become the scene of a tragedy that would shock families, neighbors, and eventually an entire city. The morning after the violent confrontation, an uneasy stillness hung over the apartment building. Neighbors noticed unusual sounds the night before, muffled thuds and strained cries, that had seemed odd but were dismissed in the dark hours. By mid-morning, concern grew when Priyanka failed to respond to repeated knocks on the apartment door, and the usually quiet entrance hall was filled with whispers and worry. Fearing the worst, a neighbor called the police, who arrived quickly with sirens breaking the suburban calm. Officers found the door slightly ajar and cautiously entered, their footsteps echoing against the empty walls of the apartment. Inside, the scene was horrifying. Priyanka lay motionless, the aftermath of the previous night's violence apparent in every detail. Samir was found nearby, in shock, his face pale and expressionless, unable to comprehend fully what had transpired. The officers immediately called for medical assistance, but it was too late. Priyanka had succumbed to her injuries, her life ending in a brutal and tragic way. The apartment, once a space filled with warmth and excitement for a new life, had become a grim scene of loss and devastation. Police began documenting the scene meticulously, taking photographs and gathering evidence while neighbors watched from outside, their faces reflecting disbelief and fear. Word of the tragedy spread quickly through the small community, leaving friends and family in India and Canada shocked and heartbroken. The peaceful suburb, which had been a backdrop for new beginnings, now carried the heavy weight of death, secrets, and unanswered questions, setting the stage for an investigation that would uncover a disturbing double life and reveal the fragility of trust in the most intimate of relationships. The investigation into Priyanka Mehra's death quickly became a high-profile case, drawing attention from local media and law enforcement alike. Toronto police meticulously combed through the apartment, examining every detail for clues that could explain the tragic events. Officers discovered Priyanka's multiple online identities, hidden messages, and secret contacts, revealing a life that had been carefully concealed from Samir and everyone around her. Each piece of evidence added layers of complexity to the case, showing that she had been maintaining separate friendships, relationships, and activities in other cities across Canada, all while presenting herself as a devoted bride. Investigators interviewed neighbors, friends, and colleagues, uncovering conflicting accounts of her character and behavior, which made it difficult to separate truth from perception. Forensic experts analyzed the scene and concluded that while the immediate cause of death was the violent confrontation with Samir, the underlying factors, stress, secrecy, and psychological strain, had all contributed to the fatal outcome. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that Priyanka's double life had played a pivotal role in the events leading up to her death, but it did not absolve Samir of responsibility for his actions. Detectives noted the emotional volatility that had led to the confrontation, observing that the tragedy was a result of both deception and unchecked rage. The case sparked broader discussions in media and among the public about trust, honesty, and the consequences of hidden lives colliding. For the families involved, the revelations were devastating, leaving them to grapple not only with the shocking loss but also with the disturbing truths that had been concealed, truths that now shaped the narrative of Priyanka's final days and the tragic choices that ended her life. Back in India, Priyanka's family was overwhelmed with grief and disbelief, struggling to reconcile the vibrant, obedient daughter they had known with the woman whose secrets had contributed to a violent end. Her parents replayed memories of her childhood and the years they had spent planning her future, searching for signs they might have missed. The contrast between her public persona and hidden life left them confused and heartbroken, feeling both sorrow and a gnawing sense of betrayal. Samir's family was also in shock, grappling with the fact that the man they had trusted to protect and love his wife had become the agent of her death. The tragedy sparked intense media coverage in both countries, and social media became flooded with speculation, judgment, and heated debate about arranged marriages, trust, and personal freedom. Extended family members faced questions from reporters and neighbors alike, forced to defend or explain choices they had made, even when the answers were beyond them. Friends who had known Priyanka expressed disbelief, some defending her character while others admitted to sensing that she had lived a more complicated life than anyone realized. The emotional weight of the tragedy was amplified by the cultural expectations surrounding marriage, honor, and family reputation, leaving both families caught between grief and public scrutiny. As investigators pieced together the events leading to her death, the families were forced to confront difficult truths about secrecy, deception, and human fragility. Their private sorrow became intertwined with a public story of tragedy and warning, a story that spread far beyond their immediate circle, reminding everyone that appearances can be deceiving and that even the closest relationships may conceal dangerous unknowns. Samir Kapoor's trial became the culmination of a tragedy that had gripped two countries, drawing intense media coverage and public scrutiny. Evidence of Priyanka Mehra's double life was presented alongside detailed accounts of the events that led to her death, painting a complex picture of secrecy, betrayal, and uncontrolled anger. The courtroom was filled with tension as prosecutors outlined the consequences of Samir's actions, while his defense attempted to highlight the emotional shock he had experienced upon discovering the truth about his wife. Witnesses testified about Priyanka's hidden identities, her secret relationships, and the moments of tension that had escalated into violence, revealing how deception and mistrust had set the stage for the fatal confrontation. The judge and jury faced the difficult task of separating motive from action, understanding that while Priyanka's hidden life contributed to the emotional turmoil, it did not excuse the brutality that ended her life. In the end, Samir was sentenced to life in prison, a decision that brought a measure of legal closure but could not erase the pain and loss endured by both families. Priyanka's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder of how trust and secrecy can collide with devastating consequences, and how appearances can mask complex, sometimes dangerous realities. Friends, neighbors, and viewers alike were left to reflect on the fragility of human relationships and the dark potential hidden beneath seemingly ordinary lives. Though justice had been served in the legal sense, the emotional scars remained, leaving a lasting imprint on everyone touched by the tragedy. The story of Priyanka and Samir became more than a crime, it became a somber lesson in honesty, perception, and the hidden dangers that can lurk in the lives of those we think we know best.